The desperate call, the crystal gardens of Zenthara Prime sparkled like captured starlight beneath the pale blue glow of their twin suns. For over 5,000 years, the Zentharian Empire had flourished across 17 star systems, their crystalline cities growing like living formations from the cores of planets. They were beings of pure elegance, their translucent bodies pulsing with soft internal light that changed color with their emotions and thoughts. Ambassador ZYX-4471 stood in the highest chamber of the central resonance tower, his form flickering between deep purple and violent red as he watched the holographic displays surrounding him. Each screen showed the same terrifying reality spreading across the outer colonies. Darkness was consuming everything. The Void Swarm had appeared without warning 3 standard cycles ago. At first, the Zentharian High Council had dismissed the reports as sensor malfunctions. Their advanced civilization had never encountered anything that could threaten their energy-based technology. Their cities were powered by harvested starlight. Their ships moved through space by manipulating gravitational fields, and their weapons could disintegrate matter at the molecular level. But the Void Swarm was different. These entities seemed to exist in the spaces between dimensions, feeding on energy itself. They consumed starlight, absorbed gravitational fields, and grew stronger with every technological system they encountered. The more advanced the civilization they attacked, the more powerful they became. ZYX-4471's assistant, Harmonizer Velnine 1832, approached with trembling steps. Her usual golden radiance had dimmed to a sickly yellow, and her voice carried the harmonic distress patterns that made all Zentharians share her fear. Ambassador, we have lost contact with Colony Cluster 7. The void entities have consumed the entire system. Our evacuation fleets never made it out. She paused, her light flickering like a dying flame. The swarm has learned to use our own transportation networks against us. They are traveling through our dimensional gates. ZYX-4471 felt the collective consciousness of his people surge with panic. Every Zentharian was connected through quantum entanglement, sharing thoughts and emotions across vast distances. Right now, 18 billion minds were singing the same song of terror and desperation. How long until they reach the core worlds? He asked, though he already knew the answer would seal their fate. Based on their current consumption rate and the energy they have absorbed from our colonies, the swarm will reach Zenthara Prime in 47 standard hours. Our defensive barriers will delay them for perhaps 6 additional hours before they adapt and overcome our shielding. ZYX-4471 closed his eyes and felt the weight of an entire civilization resting on his decision. The Zentharians had always believed they were the most advanced species in the galaxy. Their technology was millennia ahead of any other race they had encountered. They had dismissed the crude radio signals from younger civilizations as the babbling of primitives barely worthy of notice, but now those primitives might be their only hope. Prepare the quantum resonance array for galaxy-wide transmission, he commanded. Emergency authorization, Omega Prime. Velnini 832's form flashed bright white. With shock. Ambassador, that will drain our remaining planetary energy reserves. We will be completely defenseless. We are already defenseless, ZYX-4471 replied. Pride is a luxury we can no longer afford. The quantum resonance array was the pinnacle of Zenthorian technology, capable of sending instantaneous messages across the entire galaxy through quantum entanglement networks. It had never been used for emergency. broadcast because the Xantharians had never needed help from anyone. ZYX-4471 placed his crystalline hands on the control matrix and felt the immense power of Xanthara Prime's star flowing through the system. Every Xantharian on the planet could feel the energy drain as their ambassador, prepared to humble their civilization before the galaxy. This is Ambassador ZYX-4471 of the Xantharian Empire, broadcasting from Xanthara Prime in the Kepler 438 system. His voice carried the harmonic frequencies that made Xantharian speech sound like music, though he doubted any primitive species would appreciate the artistry. We are an advanced civilization facing immediate extinction. An entity known as the Void Swarm is consuming our worlds and our people. Our technology is useless against them. Any species capable of receiving this transmission, we desperately request your assistance. We are dying. Time is running out. Please help us. The transmission burst out from Xanthara Prime at faster-than-light speeds, carried by quantum waves that would reach every corner of the galaxy within minutes. ZYX-4471 felt the network's power systems failing as the massive energy expenditure drained their planet's reserves. 63 light-years away, communications specialist Jake Morrison was halfway through his night shift at Deep Space Monitoring. Station Tango 7, when every alarm in the facility exploded into sound. The incoming signal was unlike anything in the Terran Defense Coalition's database. The power levels were off the charts, suggesting technology that shouldn't exist. Jake ran the signal through the translation protocols, but the computer kept generating error messages. The language was completely unknown, but the emotional undertones were universal. Pure terror from beings who had never known fear. Control, this is Station Tango 7. I'm picking up a priority distress signal from an unknown alien species. The source appears to be... Wait, that can't be right. Jake checked his instruments again. Control, the signal is coming from the Kepler 438 system. Our database lists that system as uninhabited. The response came back immediately. Station Tango 7, forward that signal to Admiral Chen at Fleet Command. Authorization code, Alpha Black. Jake's hands shook as he routed the transmission. Alpha Black meant potential extinction-level threat to human space. The Terran Defense Coalition had standing orders to investigate any unknown technology that appeared near human colonies, aboard the flagship TDC Indomitable. Admiral Sarah Chen reviewed the intercepted signal for the 4th time. Her senior staff sat around the holographic conference table, watching the computer's analysis scroll past in columns of data that painted a terrifying picture. So let me understand this correctly, Chen said, her weathered face grim with determination. An unknown alien species with technology far superior to ours is begging for help against something called the Void Swarm. Her tactical officer, Commander David Park, nodded grimly. That's the situation, Admiral. Long-range sensors confirm massive energy signatures in the Kepler 438 system. Whatever is happening there is powerful enough to be detected from 60 light-years away. Dr. Maria Santos, the fleet's xenobiologist, spoke up from her position at the science console. Admiral, the Kepler 438 system has been classified as uninhabited for decades. Our last survey mission reported no signs of intelligent life, either. These Xantharians are incredibly good at hiding, or they developed their civilization very recently. Chen studied the tactical display. The Kepler 438 system was located along one of the major hyperspace routes leading directly to human space. If something hostile was operating there, it could threaten dozens of human colonies within weeks. Commander Park, what's our current fleet status? We have the full Third Fleet available, Admiral. 42 vessels, including 12 heavy cruisers. And the Dreadnought, Indomitable. Total crew complement of 18,000. Chen made her decision. Send a message to Earth Command. Request immediate authorization to deploy the Third Fleet for first contact and potential combat operations. If this void swarm is as dangerous as it sounds, we need to stop it before it reaches human space. Admiral Dr. Santos added, I should mention that our deep space monitoring stations have detected similar energy signatures in 3 nearby systems over the past 2 months. Each one went dark shortly after the readings appeared. The implications hit Chen like a physical blow. If the void swarm was moving through space, consuming entire civilizations, humanity might be next on the list. The human colonies in the outer rim were lightly defended and completely unprepared for something that could threaten a species more advanced than humanity. 18 hours later, the largest human fleet ever assembled dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 438 system. What they found was beyond anything they had imagined. Zenthara Prime was a masterpiece of crystal and light, with cities that grew like living formations from the planet's surface. The entire world seemed to pulse with soft, multicolored radiance, but nearly half the planet was covered in something that made Chun's stomach turn with revulsion. The void swarm looked like living darkness given form. It moved across the crystalline cities like a tide of hungry shadows, consuming everything in its path. Where it touched, the beautiful crystal formations crumbled to dust, and the soft light of Xantharian civilization was snuffed out forever. Dr. Santos, what am I looking at? Chen asked, her voice tight with controlled fear. The xenobiologist was frantically running scans from every instrument on the ship. Admiral, the void swarm appears to be a collective entity of unprecedented complexity. It's not just attacking the planet, it's absorbing it. Every structure it consumes becomes part of its mass. It's literally eating the civilization and incorporating their technology into itself. Approximately 6 billion Xantharians remain on the planet, concentrated in the areas the swarm hasn't reached yet. But Admiral, that's not the most disturbing part. Dr. Santos looked up from her instruments with wide, frightened eyes. The swarm is learning. Each section that consumes Xantharian technology becomes more sophisticated. It's adapting their defensive systems and using them as weapons. Before Chen could respond, her communications officer interrupted. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from a Xantharian vessel. They're requesting permission to come aboard. Chen looked at the tactical display. A single ship was approaching from the direction of the planet. It looked more like a work of art than a spacecraft. All flowing curves and crystalline surfaces that seemed to bend light around them in impossible ways. Grant permission. Send Commander Park and a full diplomatic team to Shuttle Bay 2. An hour later, Chen stood in the ship's main conference room, face to face with beings that challenged everything she thought she knew about alien life. The 3 Xantharians were tall and elegant, their translucent bodies pulsing with soft internal light that shifted colors as they spoke. The leader's light was a deep, worried blue as he introduced himself. I am ZYX 4471, Ambassador of the Xantharian Empire. I come seeking the beings who answered our call for help. Chen stepped forward, trying to hide her amazement at the alien's beauty. I'm Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Coalition. We received your distress signal and came as quickly as possible. ZYX 4471's light shifted to surprised purple. Terran Defense Coalition. You are from the third planet of the Sol system. But our surveys indicated that world was inhabited by primitive mammals engaged in constant warfare. Chen felt her jaw tighten, but kept her voice level. Those primitive mammals have come to help you, Ambassador. Now tell me everything you can about this void swarm. Asterisk the Deathworld, Responsta, meeting that followed in the Indomitables conference room was unlike any first contact scenario in human protocols. ZYX4471 and his companions were clearly struggling to reconcile their preconceptions with reality. They had expected their saviors to be another advanced energy-based species, not creatures made of flesh and bone who carried weapons everywhere they went. Your vessels are crude constructions of metal and ceramic, CYX4471 observed, his light shifting to a disdainful orange. How did you achieve faster-than-light travel with such primitive materials? Admiral Chen exchanged glances with Commander Park. Sometimes the best solutions are the simple ones, Ambassador. We learned to work with what we had. Dr. Santos leaned forward with her scanner readings. Ambassador, we need to understand the nature of the void swarm. Our sensors indicate it's not just one organism, but billions of entities working in perfect coordination. How did they find your world? Zix4471's companions flickered with fear patterns as he answered. The void swarm moves from system to system, consuming everything in its path. They exist partially outside our dimension, feeding on energy itself. We detected their approach 6 standard cycles ago, but we believed our defensive barriers would protect us. We have never needed crude weapons like yours. Violence is unknown to our people. Unknown. Chen couldn't hide her disbelief. In 5,000 years of civilization, you've never had war, crime, any form of conflict. Our minds are connected through quantum consciousness networks. We share thoughts and emotions across our entire species. Individual violence is impossible when you feel your victim's pain as your own. ZYX-4471, single quotes as light dimmed with sadness. But the void entities feel nothing. They consume without hatred, without anger, without any emotion we can understand. They simply devour. Suddenly, every alarm on the ship began sounding. The tactical officer's voice echoed through the speakers. Admiral to the bridge immediately. We have multiple contacts emerging from the planet's surface. Chen and her officers rushed to the bridge, leaving Dr. Santos to continue the interview. What they found on the main display made every human present stop in their tracks. Thousands of void entities were rising from the consumed sections of Zenthara, prime like a swarm of living shadows. Each one was roughly the size of a human fighter craft, but they moved through space without any visible means of propulsion. More disturbing, they seemed to phase in and out of normal space, making them nearly impossible to target with conventional weapons. Weapons status, Chen barked. All weapons online, Admiral. But ma'am, our energy-based systems might actually feed these things if Dr. Santos's analysis is correct. Chen studied the tactical display as the void entities spread out through the system like a plague of darkness. They were fast, incredibly fast, but they also seemed to move chaotically, without any apparent coordination or strategy. Commander Park, get back to Dr. Santos. I want to know everything she's learned about these creatures in the next 5 minutes. All ships maintain defensive positions, but do not engage until further orders. Below, in the conference room, Dr. Santos was making a discovery that would change the course of the battle. Ambassador, You mentioned that the Void Swarm feeds on energy and grows stronger from advanced technology. What happens when they encounter something they can't absorb? Zix 4471's light pulsed with confusion. I do not understand the question. All matter and energy can be consumed by the void. They have devoured civilizations far more advanced than yours. But what about kinetic weapons? Simple projectiles, raw physical force. Such crude methods are ineffective against beings that exist partially outside normal spacetime. Your primitive ballistic weapons would pass harmlessly through them. Dr. Santos smiled grimly. Ambassador, I don't think you understand just how primitive humans can be. When Commander Park returned to the bridge with Dr. Santos's findings, Admiral Chen was already formulating a plan that would have horrified any civilized species in the galaxy. So these things feed on energy but have trouble with simple kinetic force? Chen asked. That's correct, Admiral. They're designed to absorb and redirect energy-based attacks. But Dr. Santos believes they might be vulnerable to old-fashioned physical impact. Chen turned to her weapons officer. How much kinetic ammunition do we have in our magazines? Admiral, the fleet is carrying approximately 2 million rounds of depleted uranium slugs for our railguns, plus another 500,000 tungsten penetrators for close-range defense. Perfect. Signal the fleet. All ships are to switch to kinetic weapons only. No energy weapons, no missiles with electronic guidance systems. We're going to fight these things the old-fashioned way. The Xantherian observers watched in amazement. As the human fleet began implementing tactics that seemed impossibly primitive, ships that had been bristling with energy, weapons, and sophisticated missile systems suddenly configured themselves for pure kinetic warfare. Railguns extended from hidden compartments, and magnetic launchers prepared to fire simple metal slugs at incredible velocities. This is insane, ZYX4471 whispered, his light cycling through colors that had no equivalent in human emotion. They intend to fight interdimensional entities with pieces of metal. Ambassador, Dr. Santos replied, you're about to learn why humans are considered one of the most dangerous species in the galaxy, even by civilizations far more advanced than ours. The first wave of void entities reached the human fleet like a tide of living darkness. They phased through the ship's hulls, attempting to drain the vessel's power systems. But Admiral Chen had ordered all ships to switch to minimal power mode, running only essential life support and navigation systems. What the void entities found instead was something they had never encountered before. Humans had learned to fight in the harshest environments imaginable. They had developed weapons and tactics specifically designed for situations where energy-based systems would fail. The Indomitable's main railgun fired first, launching a tungsten slug the size of a telephone pole at 30% the speed of light. The projectile struck a cluster of void entities with the force of a small nuclear weapon. The creatures, expecting to absorb the energy of the impact, instead found themselves torn apart by simple kinetic force that they could not process or redirect. Across the fleet, similar scenes played out as human ships opened fire with weapons that any advanced civilization would have considered laughably primitive. Railguns, magnetic accelerators, and simple chemical explosive warheads tore through the void, swarm like a hurricane of metal and fury. But the humans were just getting started. Launch the kinetic bombardment platforms, Chen ordered. From the fleet's cargo bays, dozens of simple metal containers were ejected into space. Each one contained thousands of depleted uranium ball bearings. When they detonated, they created expanding clouds of high-velocity projectiles that the void entities could not avoid or absorb. The space around Zenthara Prime became a storm of metal death as humanity unleashed 5,000 years of evolutionary violence against an enemy that had never encountered such primitive brutality. ZYX-4471 watched the battle from the Indomitable's observation deck, his crystalline form cycling through colors of amazement and horror. They fight like the universe itself is trying to kill them, he whispered. Why? He asked Admiral Chen as she surveyed the damage. Why did you come? Why did you risk your lives for a species that considered you primitive? Chen looked out at the damaged cityscape, where human and Xantharian workers were already beginning reconstruction efforts. Because that's what humans do, Ambassador. We help those who need helping, and we fight things that need fighting. It's really that simple. In the months that followed, the alliance between humanity and the Xantharian Empire would reshape the galaxy. The Xantharians shared their advanced energy technology, while humans provided something equally valuable, the knowledge of how to fight when fighting seemed impossible. Other species throughout the galaxy began to take notice of the primitives from the Sol system. The beings who had seemed so crude and violent had accomplished something that the galaxy's most advanced civilizations could not. They had defeated the void swarm through sheer determination and the willingness to use whatever tools were necessary for victory. The Xantharians learned to see beauty in humanity's crude pragmatism, while humans gained a new appreciation for the elegant complexity of truly advanced civilization. Together, they built a partnership that would defend the galaxy against threats that neither species could face alone. And in the deepest archives of the Xantharian Empire, a new entry was recorded. Never underestimate the species that learned to survive on a death world. When the galaxy calls for help, the Deathworlders will answer with a fleet of destruction and the will to use it.